What's up guys, my name is Matthew Kyle, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how to price your products and services so you can get top dollar every single time. In business school they teach that the price of a product or service should be some kind of a multiplier from the cost of goods that it takes to produce the good or service. I disagree with that completely. I think that that leaves a lot of money on the table, which ultimately should be going into your pocket. So we're going to throw that out the window. I'm going to show you guys how I have approached pricing for my businesses so you guys can maximize your earning potential. It really just comes down to three things. Number one, we're going to talk about value. Number two, we're going to talk about expectation. And then lastly, number three, we are going to talk about confidence. And by the way guys, if you like these videos and you find them helpful, please do me a huge favor, hit the like button wherever it is down there. I'm not really sure. Make sure it turns blue. It helps YouTube know that I make good quality stuff for you guys, promotes my videos, and makes it a little bit easier for me to produce more high quality stuff for you guys. If you really like it, subscribe to my channel, but I won't even make you do that. All right, let's dive right in. So the most important thing I want to start off by saying is that price is a byproduct of value, expectation, and confidence. Price does not create these things create price. That is a very important concept I want to lay out right at the beginning. Let's start off by talking about value, and value is such an abstract and a very strange concept, so I really want to try and keep a narrow focus and limit my discussion of value in terms of how it relates to pricing products or services. Basically, and this might seem obvious, so I apologize, but I'm going to say it out loud because maybe it isn't obvious. People buy products or services because they have value to them as the buyer. The value of a donut to a hungry person is its ability to satisfy that hunger. The value of gold to an investor is its convertible cash equivalent, which if you're watching this video today is roughly $1,979. So value can really be qualitative or quantitative, meaning it can either satisfy some kind of an emotional need or it can have some kind of quantitative value, like in its ability to be converted into cash or some kind of equivalent. In my example of the donut value was qualitative. In my example of the gold, because the interest in the gold is in its convertible cash value, that is a quantitative value that the investor looks for in the gold. Things don't have to be one or the other, but usually they start off with a core value that produces the value of the good, and there's a lot of other smaller values, both qualitative and quantitative, that surround that good or service. Again, let's go back to my example of this woman eating the donut. She might put the value of $2 on the donut's ability to satisfy her hunger, but let's say that this donut shop is also where her dad took her when she was a child and she wants to go back and relive those memories. So she's actually willing to pay an extra $3 just because she wants to relive that experience. So this woman will pay $5 for that donut, most of which is not actually related to the cost of good at all. And it has everything to do with the emotional satisfaction that she gets from eating that donut. So in this case, the donut has both a qualitative and a quantitative value associated with it. And even though a lot of investors would just look at gold as a strict investment commodity only worth what its per ounce value is, but I actually disagree with that. I think gold has value beyond what its market price is. For example, think about a luxury watch. If you take a luxury watch and you take a stainless steel and a gold equivalent of the same company's watch, the gold version of that watch is usually going to sell for 3 to 5 times more than the stainless steel equivalent. And ironically, the incremental cost to produce that case out of gold is not 3 or 4 times as much. It's usually a little bit more, but it's more incremental. But there's a value in the shininess of the gold. There's a value in saying it's gold. There's a value in the weight. It just feels good. So gold also has just a brand name, which gives it value, I think, beyond its just value per ounce as a precious metal. So a product or a good can have different values. It can have a qualitative, it can have quantitative values. There's many ways that value can be tied to a product. For example, precision, accuracy, safety, shine, exclusivity, rarity. These are all things that add value to a product, but they mean different things to different buyers. Buyers like specific values that they resonate with, and they're more likely to pay you more money if your product has values that resonate with what they value internally as well. Which leads me to my last, but maybe my most important point that I want to make about value, and that is you as the creator of your product and your service, you guys get to decide exactly what values that product or service is going to possess. And that is a very powerful creative tool, but so often I see entrepreneurs start off with a really good value proposition. In other words, they really have a clear picture of what is going to make that product unique in terms of the value that they give other people. But they find customers that want them to change that value. So my advice to you is when you develop a product or service, be very specific and be very picky about the value that you decide that you want that product or service to possess. Don't change it for anybody, because there will be people that ask you to change it, and the opportunity to make a short-term sale is going to be really tempting. I want you guys to hold out, stay true to yourself, stay true to what makes your product unique, and wait for the right buyer, because those sales are gonna feel so much better, and it's gonna allow you to keep your brand and your product pure for longer. Compromising your brand values to accommodate customers that never understood what it was in the first place that you are selling is a one-way ticket to selling your brand down the river, flushing it down the toilet, whatever cliche phrase you want to use. Don't do it, guys. Just don't do it. In other words, I'm going off on a tangent here. Sometimes it's not about changing the what, it's about changing the who. That's it. Let's move on. Let's talk about expectation, because in the same way that price is created by value, expectation also creates price as well, and it's just as important as value. I want you guys, the next time you're out shopping, even if you can't afford it, I want you guys to make an effort to start going into more high-end luxury boutiques, and I want you guys to notice absolutely everything. Look at the floor, look at the shelves, look at the lighting, look at how the sales associates are dressed, look at how the saleswoman is wearing $900 shoes. Everything is manicured and curated to immerse you in this environment of wealth and expensiveness, if that's even a word. And even if you're not familiar with what the company is or what they're selling, when you walk in there, your brain has already done the work for you. You don't even need to ask how much those things on the shelf are. Just because of everything else in context, your brain already knows that's expensive. And that is number one. Managing expectation is creating the environment and priming that customer so their mind already sets the price point in their head of, I don't know how much that is, but if I had to guess, it's expensive. Now I'm gonna whip out my phone because I'm gonna read a definition here, but this concept is known as priming, and it is very, very important. So Wikipedia basically says that priming is a phenomenon whereby exposure to one stimulus influences a response to a subsequent stimulus without conscious guidance or intention. So really, as it relates to pricing in the mind of the buyer, if we expose them to the right stimuli, like the store environment, the way that you're dressed, the verbiage that you're using, your clothing, your body language, your logo, honestly, anything, if we can prime them with the right stimulus, and then ultimately when you drop the price on them, like, hey sir, my services start at $700 an hour, or my watches start at $18,000, that number has some context in their mind, and the expectation that we built up in their psyche is enough to support that number. So when it registers, it makes sense. It's amazing. I really hope that made sense. I was kind of like reading half off my script. Anyway, prime their mind so they already know to expect something expensive. And one last quick thing, something that I learned from selling high-end art here in Aspen, Colorado, is that after you drop the price, don't just stare at them randomly and wait for them to respond. I used to do this. It was pretty bad. They would say, hey, how much does this cost? And I would say, well, you know, it's $15,000. And I would just like, so don't just drop the price and stare at them blindly. We want to get a productive response from them. So after you drop the price, here's what I guys want you to do. We can prime a productive response by immediately following a price disclosure with something like, and how do you feel about that? Or is that within your budget? It gives the buyer some specific direction about how to respond relevantly, and hopefully the way that they respond to that follow-up question after you disclose the price is gonna tell you everything you need to know as the salesman about whether or not that's a sale you're able to close. This is actually my notes, guys. I didn't just pull random information off the internet and regurgitate it to you. This is actually stuff from my own experience, but I want to make sure I communicate clearly to you guys, so I'm using my notes because it's a little bit of a nuanced subject here. The sales experience is a buildup. As salespeople, we need to prime the minds of the buyer and convey the value before the price is communicated. That is really important, that we've built that foundation for the price to land on in their mind before we drop the price on their heads. Because if we disclose price before there's sufficient justification in their own mind, before they rationalized it based on our ability to communicate that value to them, we have lost, and that is a gap that as salespeople we can never ever close. It's just not going to happen. So we need to make sure that we lay our groundwork, build the expectation, convey the value, and prime the buyer as invasively as possible without them knowing, so that when we do communicate price, they don't think twice about it. It's gotta just be like, oh, it's $18,000. Oh yeah, no, I expected something expensive. That makes total sense. As opposed to, what? I don't get it. You know, like, why is it so expensive? And you have to start communicating, oh, well, because this. You're trying to sew a wound together that's too far apart. It's not gonna go together. Sales is a lot like sex, guys. Imagine how much your partner would hate you if you started with the orgasm first. It's not how it's supposed to work. I want you guys to build and then finish, not the other way around. And finally, guys, and this is so important, is confidence. Specifically, your confidence as the business owner selling something that you've created. Or maybe you're watching this video because you're in sales and you're selling somebody else's product, but it's kind of all of the same. Confidence of the salesperson is always going to be more important than the value of the product. And I want you guys to think about that. It's very important. I would rather have an average product with phenomenal salespeople than the best product in the world with mediocre salespeople. Any day of the week. The salesperson is the broker of that expectation. They are the broker of that value, and they are the ones that need to read the potential buyer and figure out what words they need to say, what body language to communicate, to prime that buyer to, take out the Amex and swipe it right then and there. It's no different than selling high-end real estate. You are a broker, but especially with high-ticket sales, you are the broker of emotions. It's crazy. It's also really interesting because every single time you sit down to close one of those sales, it's a little game of like psychological chess, trying to determine what that buyer is looking for in terms of value and really what they need from you as the salesperson. Because also, make no mistake, your confidence of the salesperson is so important, because not only is that buyer deciding whether or not they want to buy that good or service, but they're also deciding whether or not they want to buy that good or service from you specifically. So it's all the more reason why you need to have confidence in what you're selling, believe in it, realize that you are also selling yourself along with that product, communicate the value, create the expectation, and put that little thought right in the mind of the buyer, exactly where you want it in your brain without them even noticing. I want you guys to prime the out of your buyers. And what I just said earlier about selling yourself with the product, that applies doubly for artists and small business owners that are actually representing something that they've physically created. The buyer is not going to separate you from the product, especially if you've made it. So use it to your advantage and get really good at it. Value, expectation, confidence. All right, guys, I wanted to keep this video a little bit shorter than my other ones. I'm trying to get them around the 10-minute mark, so I'm gonna end that here. I really think that I've hit all the sweet spots. So let's get off the internet for a little bit. Let's go out there and let's sell something, guys. Make some money. Best of luck to you guys today, and I will see you in the next video.